XRP to $12.50? Standard Chartered's bold prediction and what it means for crypto. The $12.50 XRP shockwave. $12.50. That's the number. Standard Chartered just threw down the gauntlet with a bold prediction. XRP could surge to $5.50 by year-end and explode to $12.50 before the end of President Trump's current term. That's not a meme coin moonshot. That's a global bank talking about a remittance layer asset, predicting 1,300% upside. Let's break this down. This isn't just some speculative hopium. This forecast is built on real-world utility, regulatory tides shifting, and something retail still hasn't fully grasped. XRP isn't trying to compete with Ethereum. It's not fighting over DeFi breadcrumbs. XRP is going after the $150 trillion cross-border payment market, and it's doing it with an institutional-grade playbook. Standard Chartered sees the macro picture. Ripple's expanding global footprint, its recent acquisition of Hidden Road, and the announcement of a native stablecoin on the XRPL. It all aligns with this prediction. Institutional rails are being built. Liquidity is being unlocked. And the SEC chokehold? Loosening. In this video, we're diving deep into what Standard Chartered is really saying, why XRP of all digital assets is getting this kind of attention, how the Trump administration could catalyze this rise, and what has to happen for $12.50 XRP to become reality. Let's go straight into it. Why Standard Chartered cares about XRP. When a global banking institution like Standard Chartered throws XRP into the spotlight, you have to ask, why? Why not Bitcoin, Ethereum, or some AI-flavored altcoin? The answer? Infrastructure. XRP isn't trying to be the internet's money. It's positioning itself as the internet of value. Standard Chartered sees Ripple not as a crypto company, but as a future Swift killer. A platform with the plumbing to move money between central banks, payment providers, and corporate treasuries. This isn't about hype. This is about replacing old pipes. Here's where it gets interesting. RippleNet is already live in over 70 countries. The XRP Ledger's built-in decentralized exchange gives it native liquidity access that most Layer 1s dream of. Ripple's recent acquisition of Hidden Road, a prime broker serving institutional clients, means one thing. Ripple is building the Goldman Sachs of crypto liquidity, using XRP as the native settlement layer. Standard Chartered sees XRP's positioning as perfectly timed. The world is moving from slow, fee-heavy Swift transfers to real-time settlement. And with Ripple clearing major regulatory hurdles and entering the ETF conversation, the road ahead looks clearer than ever. Regulatory wins. The Trump factor. Let's talk about the Trump wildcard, because Standard Chartered didn't just pull $12.50 out of thin air. This forecast leans heavily on political momentum. And right now, the winds are blowing straight toward pro-crypto policy. Trump's re-election changed the game. Almost immediately, crypto markets reacted. But it wasn't just vibes, it was the regulatory chessboard being reset. Gary Gensler's grip on the SEC? Fading. And in his place, we now have acting chair Mark Uyeda, known for siding with crypto-friendly interpretations of securities law. Standard Chartered is betting that this regime shift matters. A lot. If Uyeda or any pro-crypto successor implements a lighter regulatory framework, we could see ETFs fast-tracked. Stablecoin legislation greenlit. Institutional flows unleashed. And most importantly, Ripple's regulatory cloud finally dissipates. Let's not forget. Ripple scored a partial win against the SEC in 2023 when Judge Torres ruled that XRP itself is not a security. Now, with political cover and legal clarity, Ripple has room to move fast, and XRP stands to benefit directly. That $5.50 target by year-end? Standard Chartered thinks it could be the first phase of that regulatory unlock. XRP's infrastructure advantage. While most crypto assets are still figuring out their use case, XRP's already knee-deep in financial plumbing. Let's be real. This isn't some vaporware token trying to find a problem to solve. XRP was built to move money. Fast. Cheap. Globally. We're talking about a 3 to 5 second settlement window. Transaction fees less than a fraction of a cent. And throughput that can scale to enterprise levels. That's why Ripple's partners include names like Santander, PNC, SBI, and even central banks experimenting with CBDCs. But here's what Standard Chartered is watching closely. Ripple's institutional stack is finally coming together. That $1.25 billion acquisition of Hidden Road? That's not just a headline. That's access to prime brokerage infrastructure, something traditional finance needs before it can touch crypto at scale. Ripple just gave them that access. And what's the settlement token flowing through it all? XRP. This is the key distinction. Bitcoin is a store of value. Ethereum is programmable money. But XRP is the settlement layer, the infrastructure, the layer no one sees but every institution needs to use. That's why this isn't just a moonshot prediction. It's a strategic capital markets forecast. The ETF catalyst. If there's one phrase that triggers crypto bulls instantly, it's this ETF approval. And guess what? Standard Chartered sees XRP entering that conversation. Loudly. Now that Bitcoin ETFs have cracked open the door, and Ethereum ETFs are right behind them, it's only a matter of time before XRP gets its shot. Especially if the SEC steps back from its hostile posture. What changes the game is that Ripple isn't just lobbying. It's building the infrastructure to support an ETF ecosystem. That includes regulatory clarity, prime brokerage tools, and liquidity hubs across Europe, the Middle East, and Asia-Pacific. If an XRP spot ETF gets approval or even a leveraged futures product, it legitimizes the asset overnight for retirement accounts, institutional funds, and family offices. That means capital inflows the likes of which we've never seen before for XRP. Standard Chartered knows how Wall Street works, and their forecast is rooted in that reality. Once an ETF is greenlit, price discovery shifts from speculation to demand absorption. That's how you get from $5.50 to $12.50. The $10 trillion crypto market. Standard Chartered's bigger call. This part isn't getting nearly enough attention. Because while everyone's focused on the $12.50 XRP prediction, Standard Chartered quietly dropped a massive macro call. A $10 trillion crypto market cap by the end of 2026. Let that sink in. We're currently sitting somewhere between $2 and $3 trillion. Standard Chartered is forecasting a 4x expansion in less than 2 years. And that's not hopium. That's based on 3 core assumptions. 1. Regulatory frameworks are finalized, removing uncertainty and unlocking sidelined institutional capital. 2. A Republican-led administration leans into crypto innovation, from stablecoin rules to ETF pathways and tax reform. And 3. Crypto becomes part of the real financial system, not just an asset class floating on the edge of legitimacy. Now ask yourself, where does XRP fit into that vision? It's the bridge, the liquidity rail, the settlement layer designed to move funds across sovereign boundaries, with regulatory clarity and global partnerships already in place. In that $10 trillion ecosystem, XRP isn't just participating, it's facilitating the whole thing. That's the perspective Standard Chartered's bringing to the table. And that's why $12.50 doesn't sound crazy when you zoom out to that macro scale. The real utility argument. Beyond price, into settlement, let's cut through the noise for a second. Most assets in crypto are still speculative. They have potential utility or future use cases. But XRP is one of the few assets where the utility is already live, already tested, already moving real capital. Ripple's on-demand liquidity, ODL platform runs on XRP. Financial institutions don't just hold it, they use it. And now, with Ripple integrating a native USD stablecoin into the XRPL, the pieces are lining up for a frictionless multi-currency settlement system. This is the infrastructure play nobody's talking about. And that's why Standard Chartered is ahead of the curve. They're not looking at XRP as a retail trading vehicle. They're looking at it like they'd look at SWIFT or CLS or any other mission-critical settlement system in the traditional financial world. The market hasn't priced that in yet. But banks have, institutions have, and now they're positioning early. Because when the use case isn't speculative but fundamental, that's when value moves fast. From $5.50 to $12.50. The 2-stage launch sequence. So why the 2 targets? Why not just call $12.50 from the jump? Here's how Standard Chartered sees it. Stage 1 is what we're in now, the regulatory relief rally. Markets responding to Trump's re-election, pro-crypto leadership at the SEC, and growing institutional confidence. That's how you get to $5.50. Stage 2 kicks in when the real infrastructure goes live, when Ripple's broker-dealer and stablecoin tools start connecting capital markets in the US, Europe, and Asia, when ETFs are approved, when liquidity starts flowing through XRP rails at scale. That's the $12.50 phase. Not hype, utility-driven price discovery. It's the difference between retail FOMO and institutional allocation. And here's the wild part, Standard Chartered isn't just predicting it. They're positioning for it. They're one of the few banks building out crypto divisions that include custody, settlement, and tokenized asset trading. And they're doing it with full awareness of how XRP fits into that puzzle. They don't see XRP as a meme coin. They see it as infrastructure. XRP's global edge. The geopolitics of liquidity. If you think this is just about the US, think bigger. Ripple's most aggressive expansion is happening outside the United States, the Middle East, South Asia, Latin America, Africa, all regions where financial inclusion isn't just a buzzword, it's a need. And guess what those regions all have in common? High remittance volumes, currency instability, a lack of real-time cross-border liquidity. That's XRP's playground. Standard Chartered, with its roots in Asia and the Middle East, understands this deeply. They know Ripple's already embedded with central banks experimenting with CBDCs. They know ODL is gaining traction in regions where SWIFT takes days and costs too much. This is what makes XRP so different. It's not a US-centric asset. It's global first. Regulation in the US matters, but the rest of the world? They're already building. And if XRP becomes the settlement layer for regions handling hundreds of billions in annual remittances, that $12.50 number starts to look conservative. The window is narrow. The opportunity is massive. So here's where it all lands. Standard Chartered isn't throwing darts. They're not selling hype. They're signaling what legacy finance already sees coming. XRP isn't just another digital asset. It's infrastructure. It's plumbing. It's the invisible layer that settlement, remittance, and liquidity are quietly shifting toward. $5.50 by year-end. $12.50 by 2028. Those numbers aren't moonshots. They're price tags on utility. The Trump administration is opening the regulatory door. Ripple is wiring up institutional corridors. ETFs are inching closer. And the XRP Ledger is about to get a native stablecoin that unlocks even more liquidity. You can either be early to the rails or late to the explosion. Now's the time to start thinking like the banks are. Zoom out. Follow the infrastructure. And ask yourself the question Standard Chartered clearly already answered. When the world finally settles on-chain, what's the asset flowing through it? Spoiler, it's not Dogecoin. If you found this breakdown valuable, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because we go deeper than headlines. We connect the dots before they hit the mainstream. And if you're watching XRP right now, you're watching the ground floor of institutional crypto evolve in real time. Smash the like, drop your XRP price prediction in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay smart, stay ahead. This is Be Crypto Smart.